before I start relaying some of the beautiful stories and times that I had with Guru, I would just like to thank Ranjana very much for allowing me to serve her in many different ways during my life, particularly the Bhajan concerts, which we put on maybe 40 or 50, and also in different aspects of service. So Ranjana, thank you from the bottom of my heart with all my gratitude. Tell the story, because the reason why it's important to me is Chaitna's husband, I forget what his name was, but he was born on February 27th, okay? That's when he was born. And Guru was celebrating his birthday in the basement of his house. And I happened to be there. And at the end of the birthday party, whatever, usually there'd be a cloth on the ground, and then Guru would be in a chair, and then everybody else would just be sitting cross-legged, around the thing. And Guru said after the cake was given to him, Guru said, "Isn't today your birthday, Casey?" Or Darabir, I think it was Casey. "Isn't it today your birthday?" And so I said, "Well, March 24th is my birthday." And February 27th was when I had this huge experience on the ship before I was a disciple coming back from Australia to the big trip. 2 years. No, the Spain thing was a different thing. That was when I was in jail. But this trip was after I graduated from college. My dad said, what do you want to do? What do you want for a graduation present, Case? I said, "Dad, I want to hitchhike around the world." So he said, fine. He gave me $1,500, and I took off. It took me 2 years. And the last part of the trip was from Australia, Sydney, to the Panama Canal. And when I got to the Panama Canal, I jumped ship, and I went up hitchhiking through Central America back to my home in Connecticut. So, but the thing, it took me 2 years. But the thing is, when you're traveling like this, I'm kind of a hippie. You talk to people all the time. What do you think? What do you think about everything? Yeah. What do you think about God? But you're not a disciple now. Yeah. What about you? Do you think there's anything up there besides dirt? I mean, 72. So there were a lot of people traveling, and everyone talks about the metaphysics and all that stuff. So on the ship, there's this boy playing chess by himself. And some people do that because they can move both pieces. So I said to him, "Hey, do you mind if I play with you?" And he says, No, go, let's play. So he wasn't actually very good, but it doesn't make any difference. He told me about his life and how he had been with a Thai master. And the master told him to go back to England, where the ship was going, because he couldn't take him any further on his spiritual path. He needed a new master. I said, "Really, huh? That's interesting." And I said, what's the goal of meditation? I've heard it so many times. I'm so sick of it, Who can meditate, right? And and he said, "God realization." And I said, "Really, huh? What is that?" Because, you hear it, but you don't know what they're really talking about. And he said, "It's when you become one with everything, the universe, God, whatever God is." I said, "Really, huh?" But this time it clicked. All the other times, it was just like air, nothing. But it clicked. And so I said, "Wow, thank you very, very much. It really means a lot to me." Then I went, this is 1 o'clock in the morning, I went out on the small deck, F deck of this big ship by myself. There's nobody there, 1 o'clock in the morning who's going to be there, overlooking the ocean. We're in the middle of the Pacific. And all I know about meditation is that you sit cross-legged. That's all I know. I don't know anything about mantras. I don't know anything about anything. So I just start sitting down with cross-legged, and all of a sudden, this whole world, this whole thing disappears. There's nothing there. And the only thing is there is me, sort of, and the Supreme. And the Supreme is like a mother who hasn't seen her child, found her child in 1,000 years, and suddenly embraces the child like that. That child is me. So I start crying, because, you believe in God, but do you really believe in God? Yeah, right. And that's what I was more in. But when God is real, then it becomes a whole different thing. From that moment on, I stopped talking. I didn't eat. These four people that I was on the cruise with who didn't know me. Before I was like talking all the time, right? And all of a sudden, I'm not talking. And I'm not doing anything but sort of meditating, but I don't even know what meditation really is. So then when I get back, finally, I jumped ship at the Panama Canal. They give you 1 day off to look around. I just went up, hitchhiked up through that, and came back to my home in Connecticut. Anyway, so I hitchhiked back home, and I don't talk. I'm vegetarian. I don't smoke. I don't take drugs. I don't do anything bad, but I don't talk either. So my father said, "This is the biggest mistake I ever made," because I wouldn't talk to him. So then there's a paper called the Westport News. I'm from Westport, Connecticut, and it had spiritual groups in town. And I'd been to every spiritual group, kind of, Maharaji, and Hare Krishna, every one, except for the Sri Chinmoy Center in Norwalk.
So, in the newspaper too?
The newspaper, it said spiritual groups in town. And the only one I hadn't been to or had any knowledge that I didn't really like was Guru. But it was Sri Chinmoy Center. So I went there, and it was okay. Guru wasn't there. Guru was on a European trip. But it was real, and Akuti was a real person, you know. She was the leader of it. And so I go up to the book room, and I forget who it was. I think it was Rudra's wife. She's in the book room, and Kadanda is so mad because someone was in his seat. The place had 120 seats, and there was only 20 people. The first time I ever came, I was in the second row. I could have sat in the first row. He was furious that someone sat in his seat. And I said, "Hey, here comes Sivananda." So I said, "Holy God, I've never seen anyone so mad over nothing. This must be a really great path." Because it's so important to him. And so I give Kadanda credit for making me, a member. Because Guru wasn't there. So that was that.